Power Breakfast Show. Good morning, neighbors. Hope all is well. You had a great evening, a wonderful night's sleep. Give thanks when your feet hit the ground or when your little beady eyes opened. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, it is 7 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock on the Power Breakfast Show. This morning we'll have Paul Richard. You just heard it with our news brief. We'll hear from Richard Raghubar Singh. We got Ruben in the mix somewhere. My name is Steve Khan. Getting straight into it. Let's get straight into the WTs. Weather-wise, well, traffic-wise, let's start there. Freeport towards Sugarguanas. You've got some traffic. And then from Charlieville towards the interchange, Monroe Road is beginning to build. Coming from the east as you head westbound, going to Santa Rosa towards O'Meara. And then Maloney to Piarco, Trin City to UE, and then you got some volume heading from Valsain to pretty much after Elchcoro. Then before Swim Call, you've got some traffic. Out of Maraval, you're beginning to build, and out of Dago, I got nothing to tell you about. San Fernando, I got nothing to tell you about as well. All right, take a look what's happening weather-wise. Let me just check the Thames here. Did I check the Thames? It is, right, well, I do that, and I'll do that. I'll give you the weather report. Yep, what the Met Office is saying for today. Mostly hot, sunny, and slightly hazy conditions despite a few isolated showers. There's a 30, which is low, chance of the afternoon heavy shower or thunderstorm favoring western and hilly areas of Trinidad. Fair evening. Maximum forecast temp for today for Piarco will be 34 and 32 at Crown Point in our beautiful sister Isle of Tobago. It is currently 26 degrees at Piarco and 29 at Crown Point in Tobago. 29. Whoa. Of course, on our message board via YouTube, you too can send us a message like Oliver Man Warren, Doreen Pear, Mo Gaines, Pauline Buckmeyer from Florida, Wendy and Jane from San Juan, Miss Ingrid out in Tucson, Arizona, Winston Jones, Marcia Rock, Trini in Boston. You guys are going to get some weather this weekend as Hurricane Lee hugs the coast and goes up north. Gloria Gray, good morning to you. A special day to Andrew Sedeno. All right, Gloria Gray. All right, so let me bring in Pablo. Good morning, Chef Boya Pablo.
Morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. How you doing?
I'm tired.
Yeah, I could relate.
This should be Saturday.
And for me, it's Sunday. I left the house this morning, and your boy, cruising up the road. Oh, I forgot and just realized I forgot my wallet at home. So, I mean, you open the wallet and there's cobwebs and moths and stuff, but my driver's permit is in there. So I had to swing around now and go back.
You can tell the police that you bring it for them at the closest station at a predetermined time.
You can do that?
But anyway, bounce up somebody who's just ignorant and...
Yeah. And
want to make a point for the day. So
yeah, and show off to his friends I'm bad.
Show off to his colleagues.
Yeah, I thought about that, you know.
I got Steve Khan today.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I said no.
And some of them are really cool and understanding and exercise their discretion, and so. Yeah. Let's just talk about both sides. Some of them are very understanding. Okay, well, so just bring it to the station at this time, and we'll move on.
Yeah, I don't know how I forgot.
People forget stuff. It's human sometimes to forget.
Yeah, so it kind of threw off my time a little bit, but I made it in time. Yeah, you always leave room for error.
Well, you should.
Yeah, you never know if you get a flat tire or something. You need to have that spare time. You never know. Murphy's Law. You know, so that's what I do. But I made it and I scraped in this morning. Good morning, Ms. Maloney. Karen Yip now. Good morning to you. Locked on. Thank you so much. I tell you. And I watched the CPL last night. Oh, boy. Guyana has not lost a game as yet.
Okay.
They played St. Kitts last night, and Guyana has not lost a game. I see Trinidad and Guyana going up to the finals. That is what I see. That is what I see. So,
you know, interested I'm in about that.
Oh yeah, you love cricket. Edwin Marshall, good morning. Continue to stay safe. Thank you so much. I wonder if you all can answer me on our message board. If the finals were between Guyana and Trinidad, who do you think will win? I don't know. You know, Guyana has not lost a game. So,
really?
Yeah, they have not lost a game at all.
Good for them.
Yeah, they're playing really well, though. They're playing really, really well. Of course,
excuse my lack of interest, but you know me in cricket.
Oh yeah, I know that. We know your lack of that. I see the new cargo vessel has. Well, we'll talk to Demi John Cruikshank for a little bit at 6:30 this morning as the ferry docks. 10 hours. 10 hours.
No.
10 hours. Port of Spain to Scarborough. That is long. That is
there's a cargo thing, but I just think that's too long. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anybody can spend 10 hours in life to reach from Trinidad to Tobago. You can reach England and go and have a coffee and land and go and have a coffee in that time.
That is so correct.
I just no. Like spending 4 days watching cricket to me. 4 days watching the same match. Okay.
All right, folks. He does not like cricket, so bear with him. Just say okay. Come on, folks. Just say okay.
I could tolerate the short form of the game, the T20 matches.
Yeah, 3 hours are done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel like game should be lasting 5 days. 1 game, 5 days. 1 game. 1 game. Nah, man. Life too short for that.
Yeah. Deborah Grieve says they always win their games, but not the finals. That is also true. Wendy Ann James says, will it take 10 hours every time? If so, we've gone backwards. It'll probably take, they say it's taking 10 hours to get to Tobago, but it's going to be faster coming back because you're going with the tide. So, you know, we'll see how that.
You might shave off an hour when coming back.
Yeah. Morning, Patos.
And it actually could hold less too, so you know. So is the Cargo Star the only cargo vessel we have?
Well, if you get that on Lisa, we don't own the Cargo Star.
Well, I'm asking if it's the only cargo vessel we have access to.
Yeah.
If so, that's part of the problem because if you work in that one vessel hard, when it go down for dry dock for maintenance, it's going to be down longer. It's also going to need maintenance more because that one vessel struggling across that place all alone. That should actually be 2 vessels. So the wear and tear on each of them is minimized, and when one is done, at least they have one still going. You have them scheduled for maintenance. In a what's the word?
Annual.
In a staggered manner. In a staggered manner.
Yeah, so that's what they do with the ferry service. They pull one off for a month, and the other one does a couple of trips, and we have.
I think by now we as a country should have been able to get this this Tobago situation sorted, and not be going through all this drama all the time with this Tobago. I just don't understand why we're still going through all this drama with Airbridge and Seabridge to Tobago. We're doing this too long,
right? You're right,
We're doing this too long. Oh gosh.
This inter-island transportation is really
why that's so hard?
Why is it exactly? Why is it so
difficult? At one point we've gotten it pretty efficient under the late Patrick Manning. And then it just went awry again. So I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, interesting direction by the High Court to the Office of the Prime Minister to reconsider a request made by Dr. Devant Maharaj to disclose the report into allegations of sexual misconduct by former Sports Minister Daryl Smith. The report was prepared by a 3-member investigative committee into allegations of sexual misconduct by Smith, who is a former sport minister. Of course, you remember that controversy. And then he was terminated. And I'm trying to, the exact reason for termination is because I think he flouted some public service regulation. Some process that was in place and in relation to the $150,000 paid to the alleged victim, Carrie-Ann Moreau, who had, I think, alleged impropriety from Mr. Smith, who is now a Ministry of Trade envoy of some kind. Recently appointed to that position. So the High Court judge, Justice Nadia Kangaloo, made the order after Maharaj brought legal proceedings challenging the decision of the Prime Minister's office in March of 2019 not to disclose the report. The judge declared on September 6th that the decision not to disclose the information was unlawful, irrational, unfair, and amounted to a breach of the Freedom of Information Act. Oh God, John, you feel like I read all that now? Thanks, though. I appreciate it. But if I remember correctly, I think one of the reasons given, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, this is my memory working here from that time, and the amount this happened in this country, your mind becomes clouded because so much background on this happened in this country, it's hard to keep all the details in your brain. That the 3-member committee, I think, which included, it may have included Falade Motota, may not have interviewed Smith or something like that. So I think the reason of a breach of natural justice was proffered. My understanding is that the committee tried to interview Smith, but were unsuccessful in being able to do so. So the report did not have input from Daryl Smith, according to my understanding. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding, and the reason I remember the Prime Minister giving, or it could be the then Attorney General, Faris Al-Rari, is that the principles of natural justice were not followed in the interview process before the report was completed. So the report was deemed unsatisfactory or something like that. Is my brain working well, audience? I think it's something like that. But the judge is now saying release that report because the denial of the release or the decision not to release the report amounted to unfair, unlawful, irrational, and a breach of the FOIA. The Office of the Prime Minister was also directed to pay Maharaj's legal cost in bringing this action. Right? The FOIA request was made on November 27th, 2018, after the committee was appointed by the Prime Minister to investigate the allegations made by Moreau against Smith, after she was paid $150,000 for wrongful dismissal, which included a non-disclosure clause. Could you imagine? Why would any state agency pay somebody and include a non-disclosure clause in the age of transparency and accountability? That's the first thing you have to ask yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is there the need? Why? For a non-disclosure clause. What happened so that the public should know everything that happened? That's the first red flag. You understand?
Yeah.
And I guess the young woman must have signed it to receive the money. But I mean,
yeah, pressure can be put on you to sign.
Well, you have agency and free will, but I guess also you have to consider under those circumstances the trauma that may be associated with the alleged action may also be a factor in how you respond to options given to you. You understand? Also, in a completely different case, full stop, new sentence. A High Court judge has ordered the state to put mechanisms in place to allocate sufficient resources to ensure that a rape trial is completed expeditiously. Now, Justice Avison Quinlan Williams made the order as she declared that failure to ensure criminal cases involving child victims were expeditiously concluded was a breach of their right to protection of the law. I think it should go for all cases, but yes, with children, it's even worse.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? The rape victim sued the state for the delay in treating with the matter. Now, the judge says, open quotation, the criminal justice system is in crisis. This is the second or third judge to say the thing last week. Okay, a judge saying this again. Has failed to put mechanisms in place to allocate sufficient resources to ensure that criminal matters be concluded expeditiously. You know what the three pillars of the justice system are, or three of the pillars? Timeliness. Timeliness is a word that no criminology course is not coming to me now. Timeliness, which means the matter is heard as close to when the offense allegedly took place as possible. Right?
Not 10 years after.
Proportion, which means that if the person is found guilty, the penalty that is meted out is proportional to the act that was committed. You understand? And is it transparency? There's a third one that doesn't come to me now. Somebody will send it to me. You understand? And if those are not part of the equation, it means justice is not being served. So I don't know how, to be very honest, persons on remand for 15, 18, 20 years have not brought matters against the state.
Which they can.
Because if my full sentence for my alleged act was, let's say, 15 years, and I am in remand awaiting trial 18 years, I served my term already without even being found guilty officially. You understand? I've been charged and I'm in remand and I've served 15 in there 15 years, and the maximum penalty or sentence in my case is 15 years. I served my time. Through no fault of my own, I am being held by the state and I have no redress in ensuring that the state here's my matter so they can determine whether I'm innocent or guilty, and I serve my maximum sentence already waiting for trial. How that could be how that is justice? How could that be justice? Imagine if I'm found innocent after 20 years and my maximum sentence was 15 years. My life done, you know. And then they wonder why people come out angry and rebellious against the system.
Yes.
And there are, I think there's about 3,500 people around that on remand awaiting trial at different stages of their trials.
How many people is that?
About 3,500 on remand, if I'm not mistaken.
Jeez, on the ages.
Now, on the other side of that, as is shown in this case, imagine a rape victim sitting and waiting for this matter to come up as part of what she wants as justice for what has been done against her. You understand? And it's waiting years and years and years for this person who allegedly purported this performed this act against her to be deemed guilty or innocent, because the person is innocent and be proven guilty.
Correct.
But can she have any level of closure and solace until this matter is finished? Add to that, her alleged attacker is out on bail. So in some cases, these victims are minors when the act is alleged to have taken place. 10 years pass, you're going from 16 to 26, and this person walking around, you could bounce up this person in a grocery. You know how traumatic that is? Knowing your alleged attacker walking around free?
And
you have to push your life back. No, but even if the person doesn't attack you again, the mental anguish that you have, justice has not been served, and you went through this, and the state can't fulfill its duty, its responsibility to hear this case in a timely manner. And you had to live with that for all these years. I mean,
that forever.
He who feels it knows it, you know. He who feels it knows it. So, I don't know. And what I will tell you, never a dull moment. It is sad, and if the judges are saying so, what's left for ordinary people? Because the judges and the magistrates work in the system. You understand? You know how long we talking about night court in this country?
Oh, geez, that's not going to happen. You're not going to get any lawyer or judge to come out at 8 o'clock in the night.
You can't say that. If it is an order,
I can see that.
If it is an order of the court and the Chief Justice and the leadership of the judiciary say we have a night court and you are scheduled for night court, you have to come out. They just say, no, I ain't doing no work. If we put this show 7 o'clock in the night, you could say you're leaving the work, or you could say you're coming to work. Not so?
I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can't say no judge ain't coming out in the night. If that is the system they put in place to expedite a backlog of cases, they have to, and you are scheduled to do night court in whatever types of matters it is. You have to come to work. You have to go to work. It doesn't matter if what or maybe. But like any other sector, airline employees considering going to work in the night, or port workers. I don't know. We just 61 years and counting. That's all I would say. 61 years and counting. The police service has said that there are options available for officers who are struggling with their mental health. But you know this.
They've always said that.
You know this rhetoric is going to come out again.
Of course it will.
Every time there's a police-involved shooting or murder, suicide, it's not the first time. Remember years ago when there was some kind of love triangle, allegedly, and officers were said to be involved with the same person, and one shot one.
Not like a couple of years ago.
And again, the police service doing their, I guess it's a formality now, will come out and say there are options available for officers who are struggling with their mental health. But again, I ask the question, and maybe it's not mandatory, but I know in some jurisdictions, if you are, well, you have to on a semi-regular basis undergo a psychological evaluation.
Yeah.
No option available. You have to be debriefed. One, if you're involved in a shootout, police-involved shootout, whether there's a death or not. Two, on a regular basis because of the nature of your job. You can't say no. You have to be, because remember, in most cases, you are an FUL holder.
Yeah.
Did you send a link?
Yeah, I do have Demi John Cruikshank on the line.
Okay, all right.
So we've switched gears a little. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning to everyone in Power 102 and all the listeners and viewers.
Yeah, of course, Demi is the vice chair of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Am I correct?
Yes, correct. The Tobago division.
Yeah, and I will tell you, Paul, after speaking with Mr. Cruikshank last evening, we will have an all-expense paid trip to Tobago for a weekend. I won't get into that conversation we had last night. Well, we have a free trip. Anyway, good morning to you, Mr. Cruikshank. How is Tobago? We haven't spoken to you in a very long time.
Well, that is good and that is bad, right?
Yes.
And I hope coming out of your conversation in the studio that somebody gives some mental counseling to the business community in Tobago, because, it's always an uphill battle, and it is one thing to the next. Is either the air bridge, is the sea bridge, something, is the Tobago House of Assembly payment to contractors and suppliers. It's always an uphill battle dealing with as a businessman in Tobago.
Yeah, because we said that this morning that from anything to do with from Trinidad and Tobago, vice versa, it just can't be right. It's tedious. We said that this morning.
We need to get this situation fixed once and for all. As you know, what happened in 2017 when we had the total shutdown of the sea bridge and was chaotic, and the chamber and the entire business community in Tobago had the entire cabinet and the prime minister and everybody back and forth in Tobago because it was just untenable. We fixed it part of the problem. We really and truly worked hard together with the government, and we fixed the passenger side of things. So we have two brand new ferries, and those ferries are bringing a lot of people to Tobago. But we put a temporary situation in place, which was the Cabo Star. And remember when it came in, a lot of people were saying it was the Cabo Star and all kind of things. But the ferry really and truly should have been here for at least 1 year. And then the government came and said, well, we want to build a brand new ferry for ourselves. So we said, okay, how long that will take? Which would have been 18 months. And we said, okay, we'll give you all 2 years with the Cabo Star, and we'll give an additional year for procurement purposes. So we said the Cabo Star would have been here for maximum 3 years. The Cabo Star has been here for 6 years now, right? And it has worked fine, but she's a very old vessel. And we are seeing where things are happening one after the next, because just recently that vessel went on some sort of dry docking, well, not dry docking, but repairs. And then 2 months after, we had this incident when the 24th of last month, one of the lines ruptured and you had a fire in the engine room. So that vessel is out as of yesterday for 3 weeks. And we are hoping by the 17th the repairs can be done and then the certification, and put the vessel back into service. Bridgeman, who is the owners of the vessel, they would have contracted a replacement vessel, barge type, motorized barge vessel, which could only take 1/10 of the cargo that the Cabo Star would have taken. 1/10. So you understand the situation that you have in Tobago right now.
Mr. Cruikshank, there were reports that there are food shortages in Tobago. Good morning, sorry, by the way. That there are food shortages in Tobago by some persons making those statements. And then somebody in the assembly said, I think it's Faith B. Israel said, no, there are no food shortages. We spoke to Martin George last week. He said he has no evidence of food shortages. What is that situation from where you sit?
Well, like early last week, yes, you had a situation, because what happened is that the two individuals that you called, Martin is my very good friend, and Faith B. Israel also is my very good friend. But I think they did not have the direct information, because remember, in the chamber, we have the distributors, the suppliers, and also the larger food chain suppliers as members. And we will speak to them daily as to what is happening. And at one point in time, you had little or no flour left in Tobago, because one of our past chairman, he is one of the distributors for flour and sugar in Tobago. So you had a scarcity of that. You had an incident where you had little or no animal feed in Tobago. Because again, the suppliers are members of the chamber. So we will talk to them. We were talking to them on a daily basis. We had Penny Saver Supermarkets, which is the largest chain of supermarkets on the island. And the owner came out and said, our warehouses are depleting and literally they are empty. We went to Carib Compound. You had about 2 pallets of beers for the whole of Tobago. We went to J Distributors. This is Ms. Haddard's place, who also is a distributor. And her warehouse, you could have played a football game in her warehouse. And the reality is that we have to now go forward and say, listen, if the cargo vessel, which is the Cabo Star, is down, what is the alternative, the immediate alternative? And yesterday we had a press conference. We called on the minister, Mr. Sinanan, who is the person by law responsible for the sea bridge. And anybody over him is the prime minister, basically. So we asked for an urgent meeting with the Minister of Works. We also asked him to bring along NITCO, because NITCO is the agency that is procuring the new cargo vessel, and also the Port Authority Board and the CEO, because they are the ones who are the operators of the sea bridge. So I am happy that Mr. Sinanan responded immediately and said, listen, we don't even have to write him a letter. I will come to Tobago sometime next week, and we all will sit down, and this is what you need. You need, because when we had the fiasco in 2017, we brought everybody around the table. The chamber, the hotel association, taxi drivers, truckers, everybody, and said, listen, and we asked the Prime Minister to bring the entire cabinet to Tobago, which he did in 2017-18. And we said, listen, we need to fix this problem. Coming out of all of that, we got the 2 fast ferries. So coming out of this, we are hoping to get some headway in terms of a brand new cargo vessel and what we can do as a substitute in case something like this happens.
So what you're saying, basically, from what I heard, is there are looming food shortages or depleting supplies. There's really not a food shortage, as it were.
Well, what you had is a shortage in terms of a lot of the supermarket shelves were empty, right? A lot of them were empty. You could not get basic items in anything. You might have one brand of milk. You might have had no bread at all. The bakers in Tobago had no flour and those kind of things. And what we did is that we met with the port, Ms. Cabral and her team, and we said, listen, priority has to be given to food. We don't want that situation where food is totally out in Tobago. So what she did is that she used the 2 fast ferries to bring the smaller 3-ton trucks that came over with 7,000 kgs and under. Mm-hmm. And we used the Galleon Passage to bring strictly bigger cargo in terms of the bigger trucks. Because you had no cement on the island. The hardware.
Understood. So supplies are running low. Morning, Richard.
Yeah, morning, guys.
Yeah. So what do you expect? What do you really want out of this meeting with the minister? Because I mean, it's interesting that we always have to seem to reach some crisis situation where the chamber has to call the minister in, and we're doing this too long to be going through these cycles.
Yeah, and you know what we're doing is we really and truly we are tired. We can't be doing this. I can't be running my business from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening, and then have to pick up the kids, drop them home, and then I'm on the port at 1 o'clock in the morning for a vessel to come in, staying there until 5:30 in the morning, then go home, rush to try to drop your children to school, then to come back now to go and open your business whole day to repeat the same thing the same whole night again. That is not healthy. And it is not tenable at this point in time. So what we really and truly want to come out of the meeting is the commitment by the government that one, the procurement, the immediate procurement of the replacement vessel for the Cabo Star and how far that is. I saw the day after the vessel caught fire, NITCO put out an RFP requesting replacement of the Cabo Star. And 2, which is most important, what is the situation of us procuring a permanent cargo vessel to operate between Trinidad and Tobago, a brand new cargo vessel. And 3, remember we have the T&T Spirit. The T&T Spirit is parked up in the docking port of Spain. The Spirit was designed to bring heavy cargo. So if you had the T&T Spirit operating, that vessel would have kicked in immediately. You would not even know it had a problem, because that vessel could have brought bigger 10-ton trucks and the heavier trucks to Tobago. The Galleon Passage can't do it. The 2 fast ferries can't do it. But the T&T Spirit has the capacity to bring that kind of heavy cargo to Tobago. And if that vessel was working, you would not have heard the loud cry like you were
Mr.
hearing.
Cruikshank, do you think the management of the Seabridge should be passed over to the Tobago House of Assembly?
It's an interesting situation. The Tobago House of Assembly has to show that they have the capacity to run the Seabridge, right? Yes, as I'm a Tobagonian, I can say yes. But in reality, the Seabridge we have to demonstrate that, one, we have the competent people to run this service, because it's a very expensive service. Yeah? It's not cheap. And the figures, those fast ferries burn something like $250,000 a day in fuel. It's not a cheap exercise.
I'm not saying they should fund it. I'm saying the state may have to fund it, but I'm talking about the management of the Seabridge. The management of the operations of the Seabridge. The state provides the funding, the procurement of vessels, the maintenance, etc.
Well, again, I heard the chief secretary made that call, and all the chief secretary needs to do is put a proposal to both the chamber, the business community in Tobago, and to the government. And as long as the proposal is sound, obviously the chamber will support it. I'm not seeing a reason why we won't support something like that, because at the end of the day, when the Seabridge or the air bridge doesn't work, the people who are affected is the people of Tobago. It's not really the people in Trinidad, because, as I said in the interview yesterday, there is a water shortage in South, and you hear that is a crisis, right? But a man from South could jump in his car, drive up Takariga by Blue Waters Compound and buy a case of water. I can't drive my vehicle from Scarborough to Port of Spain to pick up a case of water for my family in Tobago. So again, even though they're saying you have a crisis in South, what would you describe what is happening in Tobago? We have food, we have cargo, we have a hardware supply shortage, we have water shortage, we have a lot of shortage in Tobago. So we need to sit down and go through with the minister, and NITCO have all the details. They have all the information as to what is required for the Seabridge. But I know, because we had COVID and we had all kind of things, people trying to get their businesses back up and running, we did not pay much attention to the cargo vessel, because the Cargo Star was working fine. But now we need to deal with the cargo situation in Tobago once and for all. And if it is handing over the operations to the Tobago House of Assembly, let the Tobago House of Assembly bring a proposal and let us discuss it. And we will say, yes, we support it. And we go to the government and say, it is time to hand over the operations of the Seabridge to the THA. And
maybe you can act as a mediator between Mr. Augustine and Dr. Raleigh. Mr. Cruikshank, thank you for being with us this morning.
Yeah.
You're not on too good terms these days.
So, some powers I have, but some powers I really don't have. So enjoy.
You never know. You'll never know what you're able to do in that situation. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All the best there. All right. Of course, that was the vice chair of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce.
I don't understand why 61 years, unitary state for over 100 years, we just can't get this right.
Yeah, boy. Both A and C.
I mean, it's not something that is going to go away. It's not something that we could do without. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's like electricity and water.
If they would simply build a bridge, then that issue would be moot.
Well, I got excited the other day when I saw a request for proposal for some marine services, but it's really just to fix the lighthouse in Toko. So I thought, oh my God, they're building the port to be in Toko, and I was wrong. It's really just to fix the lighthouse.
I think there are bridges in the world that span longer distances. I mean, I am sure there are some engineering challenges.
I am sure if this was China, they done build a bridge already.
The bridge gone already. Yeah. If you had a bridge, then it's less of an issue. You don't have this issue.
Well, it's a different kind of subterranean terrain too, so.
Huh?
And waters. It's a different kind of subterranean, but I'm sure some engineering can fix it. Anyway, let's roll into the papers. We're a bit behind time this morning. Yeah. You have papers?
No, I don't. Sorry.
It is Thursday, the 14th of September, 2023. Let's start with the Daily Express. Disclose Daryl Smith sex report.
Mm-hmm.
The Office of the Prime Minister has been directed by the High Court to reconsider a request made by Dr. Devant Maharaj to disclose the report into allegations of sexual misconduct by former Sport Minister Daryl Smith. That could be the subject of our question this morning.
Yeah,
did you say?
I was thinking that could be the poll. Do you agree with the decision? Yeah.
Judge orders expedited trial. Teen raped in 2017. Labrie woman stabbed to death with compass. Venezuelan was eligible to compete. Ambush. Woman shot dead, husband hurt. Coach charged with indecent assault. And woman on fraud charge denied bail. Let's move now to The Guardian. Hines, my fate entirely in PM's hands. 2 cops dead in apparent murder-suicide. Criticism and boos, Mr. and Miss Grand pageant final. This is the scene from yesterday. Oh God, Guardian. Jack, I didn't support selection of Venezuelan queen. Apparently, Jack won. I was one of the judges in the competition. No details revealed as PM concludes cabinet retreat. Hines, 2 new fire service trucks waiting to be registered. Hines, my fate entirely in PM's hands. And let's move now to the Newsday online for today. Tobago Chamber wants urgent meeting with Works Minister over Seabridge. Well, Mr. Cruikshank just told us that meeting has been confirmed. 5 men held in anti-crime operations. Police allude to suspect in death of Samoa Boy 5. State must compensate alleged rape victim, offer counseling for court today. Energy Minister Naikwan not yet cleared to restart point-of-care plant. Cop to new recruits, seek support when needed. And drug charges dropped against 6. Motor vehicle inspector loses lawsuit against magistrate. And judge condemns delays in justice system. So those are trending stories in your Express, Guardian, and Newsday for today, Thursday, the 14th of September, 2023. So, what is your construct of the question, sir?
I said, do you agree with the decision of Justice Kangaloo that the Office of the Prime Minister should release?
No, the judge said should reconsider.
Should reconsider the refusal of the FOI, the Freedom of Information request. I got it a bit long-winded there, though.
Editorially.
Yeah, should reconsider the request, the FOI request, for disclosure of the report on sexual allegations by Daryl Smith.
I think the question should the Prime Minister release the report and then.
Well, you can say that too.
Yeah, you can do that. Because you can reconsider and still say no. You understand?
Yeah.
It should the Prime Minister release the Daryl Smith report? Is that okay with you?
Yeah,
we'll go with that. Yeah. All right. Let me give you the results of our morning poll from yesterday. Yesterday, we asked you, do you think enough is being done regarding the psychological debriefing of police officers in Trinidad and Tobago? The results are in. Give you right after this.
Hi there. Honey, you made his dreams come true. send and receive money this school year with MoneyGram to fulfill their dreams for their education. You can win weekly supermarket vouchers valued at $500 every time you send or receive with MoneyGram, with locations nationwide. Send or receive money from any Massey Finance Remittances Service Limited, Massey Stores location, or MoneyGram agent. Check our Facebook and Instagram pages for details. This promotion has been approved by the NLCB.
All right, the results of our poll from yesterday. Do you think enough is being done regarding the psychological debriefing of police officers in Trinidad and Tobago? 91% said no. All right, this morning's poll. Call us right now, 222-8255. Toll free, North Americans, 866-525-1099. The question this morning, should the Prime Minister release the Daryl Smith report? Yes or no? Good morning to Riri out in West Palm Beach, Florida. Kyle Cupid, Rena Boodoo Jennings, Beefy Smith, Edwin Marshall, Deborah Greaves, good morning. Roland Clark, how you doing? Wayne B says yes. All right. Should the Prime Minister release the Daryl Smith report? Send us a message via YouTube and call us.
That first vote said what? Sorry, no or yes?
Wayne B had said yes.
Okay.
Lord, hear this name. Genuine, romantic, passionate, and loving Prince says yes. Carol Guevara, good morning. Should the Prime Minister release the Daryl Smith report? Yes or no? 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. Miss Ingrid in Tucson, Arizona says yes to the poll. Thank you, Miss Ingrid. Yeah. Should the Prime Minister release the Daryl Smith report? What do you think? Yes or no?
So you heard the poll, 222-TALK, 222-8255, North Americans, toll free, 866-525-1099. People on the web and the app, you will have to send your votes via the YouTube stream until that technical difficulty with the message board is worked out.
Working on it.
So you can send your votes in the comment section on the YouTube stream, where most people are already voting. Yeah. Oh, quite a few votes there.
Yeah, so let's go to it. Julia S. Batiste says yes.
Not Ingrid, you didn't give Ingrid.
I did give Ingrid.
No,
Ish out in Malik says yes. Cynthia Daniel says yes. Good morning, Shireen Jack. Ms. Maloney says yes. And since you didn't get Miss Ingrid, she had said yes. All right. Good morning, Sangrandi.
Good morning, gentlemen. Sangrandi, yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Randy. All right. Should the Prime Minister release the Daryl Smith report?
That's our poll this morning. Of course, it's the subject of our news item this morning on one of the dailies, at least, in terms of the Daily Express. I don't know if all are carrying it. A decision was handed down by Justice Kangaloo, where David Mirage had filed an FYA request in 2018 and it was denied by the Office of the Prime Minister, and the judge in the decision saying that the Prime Minister's office should reconsider that refusal.
Yeah. Carol Guevara says yes.
In some fun news, a woman in the U.S. found out her boyfriend was cheating when his Fitbit watch showed a spike at 2 a.m. He forgot they'd synced their Fitbit watches together, and she got a notification that he burned 500 calories at 2 a.m. He could have been in the gym.
Mm-hmm. He could have been.
Yeah. He could have been in the gym. But she jumped to the conclusion that he was cheating because his calories burned out at 500 calories at 2 a.m. I don't understand that. I guess she drove over to his house or his apartment and found the gym still there.
Not saying.
Many people get caught in cheating by technology, phones and watches and things. And iPad, they forget to sing their iPad to their phone and they go on to work and gotta be careful. So a question this morning. Should the Prime Minister release the Darrell Smith report? We discussed earlier on, I wish I could see if my memory is correct. There was some comment, I think, by the Prime Minister that the report did not follow the principles of natural justice because the committee did not interview Darrell Smith. And his version of it didn't end up in the report. My understanding is that the committee reached out to Smith, but he declined to be interviewed. I could be wrong. Or my memory could be playing tricks on me.
I'm not sure. I can't remember the exact, outcome of that.
Well, the report wasn't released, but Mr. Smith,
that was released.
It was fired,
and it was. Remember the one of the women who was substantive in the report. I can't remember her name right now. And she got a settlement.
But the woman in the report, they alleged the person who made the allegations.
Yeah, she got a settlement.
But the reason Smith was terminated was because he did not follow public service regulations and doing something, I think, related to the $150,000 settlement paid by the ministry.
Yeah, something like that.
I think something around that line. So not necessarily because of the allegation of the impropriety. Some would say the technicality.
Yep. Should the Prime Minister release the Darrell Smith report? That's our poll this morning. Yes or no?
Did you give me Cynthia Daniel?
Yes.
That's an pink elephant flying through the sky and seeing him soon.
Anon 001, she has a similar device. He didn't vote.
Yeah. Need to vote, Anon.
Yeah.
In other news, too, going across to Libya, 18 to 20,000 people have died. Homes and bodies have been washed up to the shore.
That is so sad.
Yeah, and they say they could have been avoided.
It's like a bomb fell or something.
Well, that's what one person told the BBC. I mean, the BBC. One of the dams collapsing sounded like an airstrike. The video coming out of that is, well, it's devastating.
Something happened in the world. I don't know. Too much happening one time.
That earthquake, heat. Hurricanes in the Atlantic.
$7 o'clock. You can still squeeze in a couple of votes. The numbers are working, Steve?
Yep.
Yes, because we spoke to Mr. Cruikshank. 222-TALK, 222-8255, 612-8255, and toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099. The question this morning, should the Prime Minister release the Darrell Smith report? This is, of course, based on a judge, direction of a judge for the Prime Minister to reconsider a request made by Devan Maharaj to disclose the report into allegations of sexual misconduct by former Sport Minister Darrell Smith. It was a 3-member investigative committee put together, commissioned by the Prime Minister. The report was never made public. Justice Nadia Kangalo made the order after Maharaj brought legal proceedings against or challenging the decision of the Prime Minister's office in March of 2019. The FOIA request was made in November 27, 2018, after the committee was appointed by the Prime Minister to investigate the allegations made by Harry Ann Moreau. Against Smith, she was paid $150,000 for wrongful dismissal, which included a non-disclosure clause. Anytime you see non-disclosure in a stating, you had a big red flag. You pay out $150,000, but you make sure to have a non-disclosure clause in there. Why? Why though?
Who knows?
Who knows?
If it was entirely about a wrongful dismissal scenario, why the importance of a non-disclosure clause? And if she breaches it, what happens? She has to give back the $150,000 legally, Richard?
Depends what the penalty is. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Probably.
All right.
There would be a penalty that you'd have to exercise in law, which could result in that.
Could you? Well, I mean, when you if this scenario is what it is, you can't say that was signed under duress.
So, well, it's not. Well, I mean, in this particular circumstance, the issue is not who and the non-disclosure clause. The issue is the office of the Prime Minister. Yeah.
All right.
All right, gentlemen. Well, let's pause. Let's get into our major news. The lady is in. Yep. Evie Sinhill. Bob Lynch is here. So let's get into our major news. Starts right now.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Government urges citizens not to resort to violence as a means of addressing challenges they may be experiencing. The Office of the Prime Minister has been directed by the High Court to reconsider requests made by Dr. Devon Maraj to disclose a report into allegations of sexual misconduct by former Sport Minister. Tobago Chamber says efforts were being made to ensure that food supplies did not run out on the Sister Isle. And Tobago Division of the TT Chamber seeks a meeting with the Transport Minister soon. Details in a moment. This is news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. Good morning. The government is once again pleading with individuals, families, and the general public not to resort to violence as a means of addressing the challenges being experienced. Minister with responsibility for gender and child affairs, Ayanna Webster Roy, made the appeal as she expressed sadness by recent headlines from various media houses regarding WPC Josette Marshall and her companion, Acting Corporal Dwight Skeet, who were reportedly killed in a murder-suicide at their Chaguanas home on Tuesday. The minister conveyed sincerest condolences to the family and friends for the loss of their loved ones. For those individuals and families who may be impacted, the minister encouraged those affected to reach out and seek the necessary support services so the recovery and healing process can commence. The National Family Services can be contacted, she said, at 623-2609, 800-COPE, National Domestic Violence Hotline 800-SAVE, Trinidad and Tobago Police Service 999, Victims and Witness Support Unit of the TTPS at 6120301, and HIV Helpline 800-4448. For support regarding matters of child abuse, persons can feel free to call the Children's Authority Hotline at 996 or 800-2014 or Childline 131 or 800-4321. The Office of the Prime Minister has been directed by the High Court to reconsider a request made by Devon Maraj to disclose the reports into allegations of sexual misconduct by former Sport Minister Daryl Smith. The report was prepared by a 3-member investigative committee into allegations of sexual misconduct by the former People's National Movement government Sport Minister. Justice Nadia Kangulu made the order after Maharaj, a former transport minister in the People's Partnership Administration, brought legal proceedings challenging the decision of the Prime Minister's office in March 2019 not to disclose the report. In addition to disclosing the report, Justice Kangulu ordered that a copy of the settlement agreement between Smith and Carrie-Anne Moreau, a former employee of the Sport Ministry who was said to be the victim and was paid $150,000, to be disclosed. Moreau was paid the money after claiming her employment at the ministry was unlawfully terminated following the allegations against Smith. The judge declared on September 6th that the decision not to disclose the information was unlawful, irrational, unfair, and amounted to a breach of the Freedom of Information Act. The office of the Prime Minister was also directed to pay Maharaj's legal cost in bringing the action. Efforts were being made to ensure that food supplies did not run out on the Sister Isle. This is the information from Vice Chair of the Tobago Chamber, Demi John Cruikshank, who spoke on the Power Breakfast Show at Power 102 Digital this morning. Goods were stuck on the Port of Spain after a fire on the Cabo Star put it out of commission last week. This meant that goods that were supposed to be transported to the Sister Isle could not be until alternative arrangements were made by the port. Ultimately, the MV Emprendedora was secured to alleviate the situation. Tobago businesses claimed that as a result, the island was running low on food supplies and expressed concern with the situation. Cruikshank told the morning show this morning that all was being done to address the situation on their side.
Shelves were empty, right? A lot of them were empty. You could not get basic items in anything. You might have one brand of milk. You might have had no bread at all. The bakers in Tobago had no flour and those kind of things. And what we did is that we met with the port, Ms. Cabell and her team, and we said, listen, priority has to be given to food. We don't want a situation where food is totally out in Tobago. So what she did is that she used the 2 fast ferries to bring the smaller 3-ton trucks that came over with 7,000 kgs and under. Mm-hmm. And we used the Galleon Passage to bring strictly bigger cargo in terms of the bigger trucks. Because you had no cement on the island.
Tobagonians are being warned there could be an increase in the cost of cement on the island due to demand and supply issues in Tobago. Vice Chairman of the Tobago Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Demi John Cruikshank, said challenges in sea transportation between Port of Spain and Scarborough brought about serious implications. He was at the time speaking during a news briefing on Wednesday and revealed an increase in cost to transport the product at this time since the Cabo Star has been out of service for the past 3 weeks.
So one of my trucks would have brought 12 pallets of cement from Trinidad, from TCL's warehouse. Since the Cabo Star is down, to get 12 pallets of cement to Tobago, you now have to send 3 trucks for that 12 pallet of cement. So I have a cost now for 3 truck tickets instead of 1 truck ticket. I have to pay 3 drivers their salary plus a stipend to go to Trinidad to collect cement.
He warned this additional cost to get the commodity to Tobago from the supplier in Trinidad could be passed on to the consumer.
So what you have now is that this cost that might have cost me $1,000 or $1,500 to bring up 12 pallets of cement, that cost now goes up to about $8,000. Who is going to pay that? TCL is not going to give us any rebate and say, listen, we understand the situation. So the business community obviously has to pass it on to the customers. It is a temporary fix, a temporary situation. But people have to understand it's a matter of supply and demand.
You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Independent Senator Dr. Maria Dillon Remy is hoping all matters relating to internal self-governance for Tobago will be addressed nationally and resolved before the next general elections. Dr. Remy believes if this is achieved, it can go a long way in avoiding the subject being used as a political tool. She said it will be encouraging to see the topic tackled in detail at this point in time ahead of the poll to give it the fairness and transparency it deserves. Her points were made public during an interview on the Power Breakfast program on Power 102 Digital on Wednesday. The Tobago-born Dr. Remy said the matter should be deliberated upon during what she described as sober times.
I have been pushing that we need to have this discussion nationally because one of the things that I did not want is for this discussion to be happening just before a national election. And unfortunately, this is what is happening now because we're in the 4th session. Next session is the 5th session. And at least if it happens now rather than then, because each time it becomes a political football between the parties in Trinidad. And that's unfortunate. It should not happen this time. But the situation is that this has to happen in sober sober times for discussion. It cannot happen in the times when we're looking at who will win and who will lose if such and such a thing is done, because Tobago's interest is not served at that point in time.
Dr. Dylan Remy said she's of the view there is also a role for the opposition in the process, and this allowed for by the Constitution and the Parliament.
The opposition cannot be eliminated from the discussion unless we want to go outside the current constitution. We Trinidad and Tobago, and there's a Trinidad and Tobago Parliament. The constitution is changed in the Parliament.
Yes.
And it has to have opposition support.
Straight into weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, mostly hot, sunny and slightly hazy conditions despite few isolated showers. There's a low chance of the afternoon heavy shower or thunderstorm favoring western and hilly areas of Trinidad. Fair night expected. Gusty winds and street flooding can occur in the event of heavy downpours. You can expect a temperature high of 34 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 32 degrees Celsius at Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, it is 29 degrees Celsius at both localities. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock, government urges citizens not to resort to violence as a means of addressing challenges they may be experiencing. The Office of the Prime Minister directed by the High Court to reconsider requests made by Devon Maraj to disclose the report into allegations of sexual misconduct by former Sport Minister. Tobago Chamber says efforts were being made to ensure that food supplies did not run out on the Sister Isle, and Tobagonians are warned there could be an increase in the cost of cement on the island due to demand and supply issues in Tobago. I'm Avril Sandel-Bab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon and an update coming up at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you so much, Avril, for our major news. You can join her again at 8 o'clock for our news brief. And then again, major news coming up with Sir Charles on the program Keeping It Real at noon today. On this, the 14th day of September, it's 102 days to Christmas, 102 days to Christmas. Just thought I'd tell you. All right. Traffic-wise, let's see what's happening on the highways and the byways. Starting out in San Fernando, the creek is not too bad. In fact, traffic in San Fernando is not too bad. Not like yesterday. Leaving Penal, heading into the highway, you've got some traffic going north on the Solo. You're going to pick up traffic this morning from Charlieville, leaving Couva to Chase Village. Yeah, stop and go at some point. Riverhead Road is not too bad. Southern Main Road, that Chaguanas Main Road is heavy. Southern Main Road, you've got some traffic leaving Chaguanas, passing Chin Chin Road and heading towards Ibis Gardens. And actually, before you head to that, Ibis Gardens, there is an accident. And from Ibis Gardens, straight up towards the Priority Bus Route, you've got traffic. It's horrendous. Maloney to Curep, Valsain to Port of Spain, Lady Young Road, Maraval, Lower Santa Cruz, Eastern Main Road, just as bad. Don't know how you guys do it. Out of Dago, same thing. All right. Of course, we got some votes here. We got good morning to you, CPT Singh. And Marcia Rock says yes to the poll. All right. So do we have the results of the poll?
Well, the poll this morning was, should the Prime Minister release the Daryl Smith report? So in the allotted time, and we had less time this morning, we had 12 people voting on the poll, and everybody said yes. There were no no's this morning. At least I didn't record any no's.
No, I didn't get any no's. Everybody said yes. 100% said yes.
So
of course, we'll give the final results come tomorrow morning.
Yes, well, of course, you can continue to vote on the poll throughout the day and through all programming, and we'll give you the final results tomorrow. But at this point, 100% of people who elected to vote this morning all said yes, the poll should be released. The report should be released by the Prime Minister's office.
Yeah. All right, as our guest is logging on,
Hello.
Morning to you, Mr. Kevin Ramnarayan. How are you? Your camera is off, though. Eh?
Please allow me to leave it off. I don't think a camera. I don't think video is needed on radio. But I know you have some platforms.
We beg to differ on that one. Go ahead, Paul. Tell him.
Well, we're actually streaming on YouTube, Facebook, so a camera is required for those.
All right, okay. Well, I apologize for the lack of video.
Not a problem.
Good morning and thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I see Paul Richards is here. Mr. Raghubar Singh, Steve Khan, who I mistakenly identified 2 Sundays ago in Kyria Presbyterian Church.
Yeah,
right. It was his brother.
It was my brother. That is our church. Kyria Presbyterian Church is our church. So
once it's church, Steve not going to be there, Kevin.
What is that?
Once it's church, Steve not going to be there.
You ground.
I saw what looked like him, and a lady told me that's Steve Khan. I said, no, that's not Steve Khan.
Yeah, that's Steve.
I know Steve Khan. She said, no, that is Steve Khan from the radio. I said, no, I know the man. That is not the man. So last night I spoke to him and I said, we had this little episode in the church, and he said, no, that's my brother.
Yeah. And my younger brother. He's younger than me by 3 years, actually.
Right.
My primary school is Kyria Presbyterian School, and my high school is the one that we all went to, except for Richard Raghubar Singh, who went to that school.
All right. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Kev. It's been a while since we spoke to you.
Right. Yes.
Let's start with, good morning. If we could start with your overall assessment as to how the energy sector is doing. It is our breadbasket at the moment, and that's not going to change anytime soon. I see Guyana put out a release that they have the bid rounds going on and quite a bit of interest expressed, and they expect to make final decisions about that by the end of November. So Guyana is going guns regarding their energy sector. What is your assessment of our energy sector progress at the moment?
Well, I'll just start off by talking a bit about the general economy, right? We have an economy which declined by 20.4% between 2014 and 2021. And that decline is probably only matched or slightly surpassed between what happened between 1983 and 1989, around there. And we are all old enough to remember that period in the early to mid 1980s. So the economy went through a pretty contractionary period between 2014 and 2021. The evidence of that is everywhere. The growth returned in 2022, according to the CSO, in recently published data. Growth returned in 2022, and the CSO predicts, well, not predicts, the CSO doesn't do predictions. The CSO gives you what really happened, right? So the IMF and so on and the rating agencies will give forecasts. But the CSO said that the economy grew by 1.5% last year. And that growth, that 1.5% growth last year, was not because of the energy sector doing anything special. In fact, the CSO said the energy sector's growth was negligible. That growth was really as a result of the non-energy sector recovering from the years of COVID shutdown. I don't know if people fully appreciate the extent to which the shutdown of the economy between 2020 and 2021 really impacted this country. And I'll just give you some figures, right? Because we live in a country where people talk without data. I like to talk with data. So in 2020, according to the CSO guys, in the year 2020, which was, the bottom of the COVID valley. 2019, of course, the virus would have been the virus would have become known to the world by late 2019. I remember in February 2020, I was in Grenada and seeing on CNN this talk about this virus and so on. It was pretty new to me. And then, of course, by March 2020, we had shut the borders. So in 2020, according to the CSO, the economy declined by 9.1%. And I have to go back, way back into the 1980s to find a year where the economy declined that significantly. And then in 2021, we declined again, but by 1%. So we started to see some recovery from COVID in 2022 last year. 1.5% growth according to CSO. That's what they measured. And that's mainly led by a recovery of the non-energy sector. We will see some, for 2023, what we have are forecasts because this year hasn't finished. We still have 3.5 months in this year, right? So an economic growth is measured in terms of calendar years. That's January to December. Whereas revenue and so on is measured in terms of fiscal year, which is October to September. October 1st to September 30th of the following year. So we expect some growth in 2023, according to the IMF, and according to the Ministry of Finance and the rating agencies and so on. But I don't think we're going to get the levels of growth that everybody's forecasting. And the reason for that is that those growth forecasts for 2023 were predicated on 2.9% growth in the energy sector in 2023. I'm not seeing that happening. In fact, I'm seeing the energy sector probably slightly contracting in 2023 or just breaking even or having 0% growth. And the reason for that is, and sort of drilling down into Paul's initial directive, the reason for that really is production. Oil production is down pretty significantly compared to last year, and it continues this death march downward. It's now around 55,000 barrels of oil per day, right? So just by way of reference, in 2015, that was 78,000 barrels of oil per day. So we've lost about 23,000 barrels of oil per day. And it's a slow decline. I call it a death march. Gas production is around 2.5 to 2.6 billion cubic feet of gas per day. It's around the same thing as last year. So there's no growth in gas production in 2023. So if there's no growth in oil production and there's no growth in gas production, I don't see where growth in the energy sector is coming from in 2023. And by extension, the forecast for growth in the overall economy, the 3% I think the IMF saw, is going to be less than 3%. So with the economy generally, the mood, you look around at the country, it still is. You see the scars of COVID, the economic scars of COVID are still around. Trinidad had probably the harshest lockdown in the CARICOM region. I think our borders remain closed longer than anybody else. Our schools remain closed longer than anybody else. Dr. Brack talks about that all the time. So we are still, with the scars are there. You walk around the malls, you see evidence of that kind of thing. What happened, which is positive, is that last year we had a surplus. And I think it was the first surplus in like 15 years. And that was really driven by high energy prices because we had the Russia-Ukraine war starting last year. Some of that price effect will spill over into 2023, into fiscal 2023, because the fiscal year started October 1st, 2022, and runs until the 30th of September 2023. So the fiscal year is almost finished. So some of that will spill over into 2023. And I think that the revenue position of the country in 2023 is not bad. I think the minister will collect around, when I say the minister, the Ministry of Finance will collect around $54 billion in revenue, which is slightly less than what he expected. So we'll end up with a small deficit in 2023. But it's not a revenue from a revenue point of view. We're not in a bad place in 2023.
What the war in Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon, but we're heading into the fourth quarter, which is in the temperate countries, winter, and increased demand for fuel. How is that going to factor into what happens here?
Well, I think oil prices are going to head up again, and they are heading up. I think oil is probably in the late 80s, early 90s per barrel. There is a strike in Australia involving Chevron's LNG facilities in Australia, which is affecting global natural gas prices. So that strike, coupled with the coming winter, we usually see a price increase in the fourth quarter of the year because of winter. Last year, interestingly, one of the things which saved the European continent from having a really rough time was that there was an unusually warm winter. I don't know if you all recall that. There were stories coming out of Europe about ski resorts that had no business because the business of ski resorts is snow, right? And they didn't have snow. So last year had a pretty mild winter. You don't know how winter could pan out this year. All of a sudden you could have a polar vortex or something like that coming down from the North Pole. So it is not certain how the winter will turn out. But what happened last year, because of this Russia-Ukraine war, ammonia prices, and ammonia is one of our main commodities that we sell to the world. Ammonia prices peaked at $1,650 per ton in April 2022, and it held above $1,000 per ton for the remainder of the year. Coming into 2023, ammonia prices fell close to $200 a ton. So that just goes to show you how very much volatile these things are. The ammonia price has now rebounded somewhat around $350 per ton, but it is a very volatile market. So we benefited in fiscal 2023 from that spillover of the high commodity prices and so on. And so I think 2023 revenue is not bad. Anything above $50 billion revenue collection is not great, but it's good. Once you're collecting less than 50 billion in revenue, things begin to get pretty rough for Trinidad and Tobago. And there are all sorts of pressures on any government. It doesn't matter if it's Mr. Hawaii or Mr. Imbert or whoever is the Minister of Finance. There are tremendous pressures on anybody who is the Minister of Finance because, everybody wants money. Public servants want through their union, they want a wage increase. There are contractors who have to be paid. There are debts that the government have to honor and so on. I saw that the government went out yesterday, a press release was sent out, I think it was late yesterday, that the government has refinanced one of its foreign bonds and has borrowed some more money on the international market. I think Trinidad and Tobago, when I read the press release, guys, it sounded pretty much like a boast, right? I thought to myself, Trinidad might be the only country in the world that I am aware of that celebrates borrowing money. But we have borrowed money again internationally. And it sort of begs the question, what does he need to borrow that money if the economy is not doing badly, the economy is improved? So I don't know. The Minister of Finance is the man to answer those questions when he reads the budget. We are in budget season. So I expect that.
While we may be having more revenue, we have quite a significant debt profile, don't we?
We do. And the other thing is this, Paul, the government collected $58 billion in revenue in 2014. And I of course, I was in government at the time. The government collects $54 billion in revenue in 2023. The issue is that the buying power, the purchasing power of that $54 billion in 2023 is not, that doesn't buy the goods and services in 2023 that it could have bought in 2014, right? Because the price of everything has gone up, right? And a lot of what we buy as a country is imported. In fact, most of what we buy as a country is imported.
What are the shipping costs like presently? Because that also impacts the cost of goods and services.
Well, I haven't been, well, we had a spike in freight costs last year. I haven't been following the freight costs, but you see, a lot of people don't speak about the microeconomy in this country. We speak about the GDP and so on, but the nuts and bolts really is that most of our food that we eat, I mean, most of what we eat in Trinidad comes into this country out of the United States. And it comes from certain ports in South Florida, Port Everglades and the port of Miami and so on, Tampa and so on. And there's a cost associated with getting food to Florida because most of the food that ships out of Florida comes from other states. And that is influenced by the cost of transportation within the US. And then there is the cost of freight from the United States to Trinidad. And then when you're building on top of that now possible inefficiencies in our ports in Trinidad in terms of clearing containers and so on, all that eventually ends up on your shelf in terms of the price build up, right? So of course, food inflation has been a concern for Trinidad and Tobago. It has in the post-COVID period has eroded people's disposable income. In fact, I have argued that, I mean, from all the evidence, the average Trinidadian is getting poorer because wages have really stood still. Right? There are a lot of, even if people have gotten 4%, right? In fact, I was seeing where prison officers got 4%, but it equated to something like about $200 to $300 extra per month. People's wages have essentially stood still. But at the same time, the grocery bill has not stood still. So people's disposable income is being eroded. I know of situations where there are families who have had to defer children going to university, right? Because university is not free anymore. I mean, there is still a means test you could do for GATE and so on, but it is difficult out there. And I mean, we need to really look at the pressures that are being put on the middle class. And at the end of the day, if I just was to summarize this point, I always tell people that I've had the benefit of being in government. At the end of the day, when you strip aside all the complicated and fancy economic rhetoric, what it boils down to is that we need money. You remember Max Senhouse, Paul?
We need the money,
right? Because we used to go to high school in Tunapuna, so we know where Max Senhouse is in Tunapuna.
Mm-hmm.
Max Senhouse was famous for saying, "We need the money." Well, at the end of the day, it speaks to the ability. What we need to speak to is the ability of Trinidad and Tobago to earn money, right? Because that everybody needs money. We need to be able to pay our public servants better. Private sector companies need to be able to pay their employees better, and we need money for bridges and roads and hospitals and so on. And
I don't know if you could touch on the issue. I know that the private sector had also contributed to the increase in economic performance. These are some of the data coming out of the ministry. The manufacturing sector. And also, if you could touch on the issue of the Dragon Gas negotiations, I want to call them at this point. Because of course,
so the private sector is really rebounding from COVID. I know that sounds as though the private sector had COVID, but rebounding from the economic impacts of COVID lockdowns and so on. So demand is picking up, for example, for manufactured goods and services throughout the CARICOM. So, our manufacturers would be increasing their production, their orders and so on would have increased from other CARICOM jurisdictions. So there is this rebound from COVID, which started in 2022 and will flow into 2023 and so on. The issue, we come back to money. right? The energy sector contracted by 30% between 2014 and 2021. And that, I mean, I could probably work out, I could tell you I have an Excel spreadsheet open in front of me, right? It actually, sorry, that's the contraction there of 30% is between 2014 and 2022. That's a big hit. And that is really a result of falling gas production. So we've had about a 30% fall in gas production in that period. So we're earning less money from that sector. We're earning less foreign exchange. That's a concern. One of the solutions the government has pursued is the Dragon Gas project with Venezuela. That seems to be mired in lots of geopolitics, and the U.S. sanctions on Venezuela are bearing down on us. The OFAC license was, granted in January, but there's a stumbling block. 2 months ago, the Prime Minister, said that the issue is Venezuela is not happy with the terms of payment for its gas. So I don't see Dragon as being something that we as a country should hang our coat on. I think we have to continue to pursue Dragon, but we have to make do with what we have, what God and geology have given to us, which is the gas resources and the oil resources within the boundaries of Trinidad and Tobago. The issue is that, even with Dragon, if we were to get Dragon tomorrow, we still might be in a problem with gas in Trinidad because the deficit, because we've fallen so far. Our gas production is at a 20-year low. And of course, the manifestations of that are plant closure and plants running below their full capacity. So we have to look at developing our own deep water gas. There is a project which Woodside is pursuing off Tobago, which we hope will realize, a commercial decision in 2024. But it is, of course, we also have to look at how we transform the economy and diversify the economy. And I've always lobbied and I've always spoken about the potential of our maritime services sector to be the driver of that change, because we are part of a region where maritime activity is going to pick up significantly because of what's happening in Guyana and because of what is about to happen, I believe, in Suriname. Suriname is most likely heading in the direction of Guyana come 2024. And they would have oil production by 2028 if all goes to plan. So the region is going to be bustling with maritime activity to support those industries, and we could position ourselves to be the maritime services hub for the region. And
we've been saying so for decades and hasn't seemed to have materialized.
We have, and it's something that requires political will and strategic thought and so on. But the ingredients are here, Paul.
But I remember one of Minister Ember's first budgets when Dr. Rowley's administration took office in 2015 was about those ports in South Trinidad and maximizing the potential of the ports, not only for Suriname taking off, but because of the new canal that was being built in Panama and the berthing potential of Trinidad and Tobago, the ship maintenance and ship repair potential of Trinidad and Tobago because of our positioning.
Yeah, so it hasn't really, we were supposed to have done a second phase of the Galeota port. That has never happened. So there's phase 1 is operational, but phase 2 has never happened. There is a lot of potential for that sort of business in Point Lisas and so on, given the facilities and so on that, ISCOT had in Point Lisas or ISPAT or Mittal. So that is where I think we have to go. But I think that the economy continues to, and based on our peak GDP was 2014. We lost, after 2014, we lost 20.4% of our GDP. We will not get back to 2014 levels of GDP at this current rate of growth, this 1.5 and 2% per year and so on, until we will not get back to our peak GDP levels until 2034. So it comes as though if you use the analogy of you had a certain level of income and I'm equating GDP to income, which is, I had to be careful doing that. But the fact of the matter, it will take us, from almost 20 years to get back to our peak level of GDP. So these growth rates, the 1.5s and the 2s and so on, they don't really help. What we need is something to really jolt the economy.
Let's talk Nikon, or is it Nikon or Nikon? Which one is the really the pronunciation?
Nikon.
Let's talk Nikon for a bit.
Consensus, yeah, Nikon.
And what that plant being down means for revenue generation. What's the impact of that?
Well, it doesn't. The thing is, Nikon is not really a big plant, and it requires a small amount of gas, and its production of synthetic diesel is not large volumes compared to what we need as a country. We consume about 400 million liters of diesel per year in Trinidad. That's what is sold as subsidized diesel. And just to let you know, that has come down from 650 million in 2010. So I keep asking people, why did we go from 650 million liters of diesel consumed in 2010 to 400 million in 2022? Where does that 250 million liters of diesel go? Did we suddenly become so efficient? Did we suddenly become so conscious that we need to drive less? And what really happened there, Paul?
Well, the diesel is used as the main source of fuel for.
I can tell you what really happened
internally. So business must have contracted somewhat. That's my analysis.
I can tell you what happened. What really happened there? There are two factors at play. One is the end of the diesel racket, and the other one is when Mr. Imbert continually started to increase the price of diesel, the economic opportunity for the diesel racket also went away. So this country was suffering the effects of a massive diesel racket prior to 2011. And I could tell you after 2011, a lot of efforts were taken by the Ministry of Energy, Coast Guard. I published a graph on LinkedIn, right? So, I think that diesel racket is by and large ended, right? And now we are consuming 400 million liters of diesel per year in Trinidad, whereas we were consuming 650 million just 12 years ago.
So the government's initiatives made it more efficient and cut out the corruption. Is that what you're saying?
Between 2011 and 2015, I could tell you that the Ministry of Energy, which I led, and the police, and the Coast Guard, and the Customs, all the government, and the Ministry of National Security, because I have to say Gary was very helpful in that regard too. During the period that we were in government, we went after that trade in illegal diesel. People call it by different names. They call it illegal diesel bunkering and so on. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of our diesel was being sold illegally on the international market. If you go back to the 2011 to 2015 period, there are numerous news stories, right, about tanks being unearthed all over Trinidad and hoses being pulled out of the water and so on. I think that has ended, and we are now consuming, as I said, 400 million liters of diesel per year. The Nikon plant will not come close to that 400 million. Of course, I don't have the exact volumes, but it's a small percentage. The value of the Nikon plant was really the quality and not necessarily the quantity of diesel that it was supposed to produce, which is a diesel which is almost zero sulfur. So, we've been having a lot of complaints about quality of fuel in Trinidad and Tobago. I saw last night on Mr. Clyde Weatherhead's Facebook page where he was complaining about the quality of super gasoline. And he was referring the matter to the Bureau of Standards and so on. And there have also been complaints about diesel quality in Trinidad. You would notice that there are no German vehicles in Trinidad that use diesel. The German SUVs in Trinidad, the Audi Q7s and so on, the high-end German SUVs, they all are gasoline vehicles. And my understanding is that those vehicles cannot use the diesel equivalents to those vehicles cannot use the diesel that we have in Trinidad.
What's the problem with the quality?
It has to do with I think it has to do with the level of the cetane level and the level of sulfur that we have in those fuels. Because the European vehicles and Europe is always at the cutting edge of environmental policy. So European vehicles are designed to use low sulfur.
But that's a long-standing problem, though, because I remember I had a Hilux that was diesel, and
it mashed up.
And well, the engine got stripped, and I remember taking it to Toyota and having to wait 2 weeks because the number of Toyota diesel vehicles that had been brought in for repair because of the bad diesel it pushed the wait list that much. So it was a widespread problem. This is about 10 years ago.
There was a German SUV that was being brought into Trinidad. I don't want to call the brand of the vehicle. Many years ago, and it was most of those vehicles had to be pulled off the road because the catalytic converters in the vehicle could not digest, to use a on-engineering type word, could not really combust that quality of diesel that we had here. So the Naquan plant was supposed to produce this low sulfur or zero sulfur fuel. What is interesting is that if you drive around Georgetown, Guyana, you see gas stations with signs up saying low sulfur diesel, right? And I found that to be intriguing, right? Because I haven't seen any low sulfur diesel on sale anywhere in Trinidad. We just have diesel, right? So Suriname has a refinery, small refinery, but that refinery produces ultra low sulfur diesel. And I suspect that's where Guyana is getting its ultra low sulfur diesel from. So we have to make ultra low sulfur diesel or diesel with no sulfur available to the population who may want to buy it for whatever reason, whether they want to drive a certain vehicle or something like that. But the Naquan plant continues to be, but I see there's a war of a sort of back and forth between the minister and Naquan. The plant probably, I think my interpretation of that is that the owners of the Naquan plant are saying they are ready to go, they are ready to operate, but they don't have natural gas. They're not getting the natural gas from the government company, not the NGC. The government set up a new company to supply Naquan. And of course, they went to court, and they sought injunctive relief from the High Court to get their natural gas from this company. And the court did not grant the injunctive relief, and they've now appealed that matter to the appeal court, right? So the Naquan plant continues to be bedeviled by whether it is accidents or commercial issues and supply of natural gas issues. But ultimately, I think we would like to see the plant operate. We would like to see the owners of the company make some diesel, sell that diesel and earn some revenue, because they owe people money. And they owe, if you follow, I think it was Asha Javid in the Guardian, I believe they owe Republic Bank a substantial amount of money. So we would like to see them earn some cash so they could pay some of that debt. But they have to sort out these issues with the government over the gas supply.
What are the bright spots in the economy that you see within the context of moving into 2024?
I think I have seen some progress in agriculture. And I want to say that I think when Clarence Rambarat was Minister of Agriculture, he did do quite a lot of work to advance that sector. I'm not even sure who is the Minister of Agriculture now, guys. Is it
Kazim Hussein?
Kazim, sorry about that. But I think I'm seeing some progress in agriculture from the point of view of a lot of these from the point of view of young people going into agriculture, and you're seeing a lot of cocoa production and chocolates and so on coming out, and you're seeing people going into vertical farming and hydroponics and so on. So I think that augurs well. But of course, I don't think we've dented the food import bill, right? So we need a lot more of that progress in agriculture.
But there's still more boutique farming.
Still more boutique stuff, yeah, correct. That's the word I was looking for. I think our conglomerates continue to be strong and our banks continue to be strong. And that's very important because when the bottom of the economy fell out in the mid-1980s, and we are all old enough to remember the famous Treasury is empty speech by Mr. Prime Minister Robinson. When the economy collapsed in the mid-1980s, the conglomerates were also going down. You remember McEnany Allstons had gone into receivership in 1985. And the banks were also, a lot of the banks in Trinidad at the time, especially the government-owned banks, were in trouble. That is not the case today. The conglomerates are strong. The Massey's and the Ansa McAls are very strong companies, and the banks are doing pretty well. So while I know people always frown on banks making a lot of profits and so on, I would prefer banks to be profitable than to be unprofitable. So our banking sector seems to be robust, and our private sector at the level of the conglomerates seems to be pretty strong. In fact, our conglomerates are expanding regionally. As we speak, I believe Anthony Sabga III is in Guyana, and he's launching, a whole new line of construction. His construction line is being launched when I say his construction, Ansa McAl's construction line is being launched in Guyana. So that's positive. There's a lot of regional expansion of the conglomerates, especially into Guyana, because of what's happening there.
That's the question I was going to ask. What are the opportunities for Trinidad and Tobago, given Guyana's monumental economic growth because of the energy sector?
Yeah, so I mean, the Guyanese economy is the fastest growing economy in the world. So by virtue of that, they're going to need everything from hardware material to construction material to cars to food and so on. So Guyana is going to go through a big growth in demand for everything. So therein lies an opportunity for the Trinidad private sector. And many of them have already gone. I mean, Bryden is across there. Agostini is across there. Republic Bank is the biggest bank in Guyana. McAl has always been there, but now they're expanding. Massey has always been there, but now they're expanding. I mean, you could drive around Georgetown and there are, I think, 3 or 4 Massey stores now in Georgetown. There are 2 big ones and 2 or 3 small ones. The Massey mini concept, the smaller ones. Yeah. So that is good. That is good that our private sector has that opportunity because capital flows towards opportunity. I mean, you can't fault businessmen for seeking opportunity. But at the end of the day, we have to build Trinidad and Tobago, regardless of what's happening in the region and internationally. We have home is home, and that's one of my famous sayings. And I think that there's a lot of potential in Trinidad left.
With that said, and I'm going to ask you to put you on the spot here. I know budget is coming up. What would you like to see in the budget to drive the economy forward faster?
I think the government has to, and I just, I'm not being political at all. I don't know if you all realize that.
Right? That's why we appreciate you most all the time, because you kind of.
I think one of the challenges, and I'm speaking direct, I'm giving some advice to the people in the government. Many of the people in the government are people I'm on very good terms with. One of the challenges I think this government has had is getting money to trickle down to the ground. I think the money is not hitting the ground, and they have to find out why. And they have to find channels to get money to the people at the base of the economic pyramid. But those are the people who are most vulnerable, and that also has a correlation to the biggest problem in Trinidad and Tobago, which is crime. Right. So if I was to speak to the Minister of Finance, I would say in your budget, find a way to get money to the base of the economic pyramid, because I don't think it's getting there the way it used to. Whether it's through URP or CPEP, or whether it's through the, all these community programs and so on, but we need to find a way to get money, and get money especially to the people who need it, the single mothers and so on. And that would be that I think is one of the challenges that this government has had in the last 8 years.
I think we can describe it, and you see it in all the research papers. Wealth disparity is one of the biggest drivers of crime, but they call it poverty in the world.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the post-COVID, COVID and the way we shut down the economy for a long period of time, almost 2 years, I think that has a correlation to the spike in criminality that we saw in 2022, on which continues in 2023. We recorded over 600 murders last year, and unfortunately, it's nothing to celebrate. Unfortunately, we seem to be on target for 600 murders this year, because we just crossed 400. And
I hope not. I really hope not.
We have 3.5 months to go. So there is a relationship between what's happening with crime and the economy, right? I mean, you can't blame poverty for all crime, because in the times when Trinidad and Tobago's economy was doing great, we had crime, right? So it's not a complete correlation, but there is a relationship between the decline in the economy and criminality. But it's not the only explanation. There are other explanations. As you know, Paul, you sat in Parliament now for how long?
Well, it's the transshipment of drugs and illegal guns, and
that is part of the problem. And
it's like a perfect storm almost. Is the wealth inequality? It's the inability of the police to be as effective in some areas. It's a lot of stuff.
And we have to remember too that we sit at the doorstep of Venezuela, and the distance. I mean, if you go to Los Iro, and if you go to the south coast of Trinidad, you would, on a clear day, you could see Venezuela right next door. So the porous borders have also contributed to the influx of guns and narcotics and human trafficking and so on, and all that is part of the problem. But the economy, as I said, the state of the economy also contributes to the criminality that we have. So the government has to address the crime situation using using economic levers. And one of the ways you do that is not just by giving people money, because that's not sustainable. One of the ways you're doing that is through creating jobs, through facilitating the private sector to expand and to create sustainable jobs, right? There was a interview a couple of years ago with Mr. Bermudez, the chancellor of the university and the owner of Bermudez, and he was talking about the impact his company had on the lives of people in that part of the country, which is Mount Lambert, where Bermuda is located. And so there's a good that comes out of the expansion of the private sector, which is the creation of sustainable jobs, because we can't create jobs through expanding the state or expanding the government. We have to create sustainable jobs. So I would like to see the minister address those things. How do you expand? How do you stimulate job creation? How do you get money to the people at the base of the pyramid and so on? And those kind of policies will have long-term positive impacts.
I know it's 8 o'clock and we're about to wrap up this interview, but you didn't touch on the issue, and I don't know how important you think it is, but the digital economy and the issue of Trinidadians and Tobagonians moving into that cyber economy as developers, app developers, or commerce, which is taking place on a global scale in terms of bringing some returns. Do you see that as an untapped area?
Yeah, I think our education system is created by the colonials and sustained by Trinidad and Tobago for the last 61 years. The colonials, and by the colonials I mean our colonial masters, the British, created an education system to create employees and to create, clerks and to create people and accountants and so on. We have to re-engineer our education system to create entrepreneurs. In the United States, they are teaching children as early as the age of 7 how to code, right? We have to rethink the education system now for the global economy, which is unfolding, the economy of artificial intelligence, and as you pointed out, the cyber economy and so on. And we have many years ago, I met with an Indian IT company who was seeking to invest in Trinidad, and they said to me that we didn't have the critical mass of people in Trinidad who could code. And this was about 15 years ago. I wasn't in government yet. I was working for one of the chambers of commerce. So fundamental to that, Paul, is complete rethinking of the education system, right? And getting past this very colonial education system that we have, which we continue to prop up, and to create the skills that are needed for this new global economy. Because I can tell you, countries like, of course, India, of course, have long moved on from that kind of that kind of education system, and gone into this education system where you're teaching coding and IT and so on from a young age.
Kevin, thanks for being with us this morning.
Yes, guys, thanks very much.
As usual, great sober conversation.
I hope to see Mr. Steve Khan in church sometimes.
You will. The ground will shake.
And the pink elephant will fly overhead while he's in church.
Okay, Richard, you were very quiet today, man. Richard, why were you so subdued?
I was listening to the conversation.
Very good, very good. Sometimes you need to listen. All right, guys, thanks very much.
All the best to you, Kevin Ramnarine, for being with us.
You all have a wonderful and safe day. It's going to be hot again today, so please hydrate yourselves.
I just wanted to mention, CPR, Cecilia, Penny, and Rudy will be hosting a free drama and social media workshop this Sunday at the San Fernando North Community Center. Now, this is free, and this is some of the top talent in the country in terms of, acting and the performing arts, of course. Cecilia Salazar, Penelope Spencer, and Rudy. They'll be hosting a free drama and social media workshop this Sunday at the San Fernando North Community Center in San Fernando. They're looking for students between the ages of 11 and 16. Sorry, Steve. Sorry, Paul. Between 11 and 16 from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And refreshments will be provided. They have space for about 10 more children. That is between the ages of 11 and 16. If anyone is interested, they can WhatsApp 683-4843. Let me say that number once again, 683-4843. You can WhatsApp. They have only space for 10 more because this is free between 11 and 16. Let me tell you, you should take advantage of that. It is going to be fantastic. And of course, it's just between 10 and 1:30 p.m. Refreshments will be served. Only space for 10 more this Sunday at the San Fernando North Community Center in San Fernando. 683-4843. That's the number you can WhatsApp. If you're interested in getting your child there, and you should be interested because this is top talent giving free training. So you shouldn't let that pass you. All right, this is where we wrap it up for the Power Breakfast Show this morning. At least we exit at this 8 a.m. hour. Have a fantastic day, whatever you do. And remember to smile and laugh. It's good for your health. It's Wednesday. Tomorrow will be Thursday. And we love a Thursday. Speak to you tomorrow.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Good morning, Faria. Hi, Tali, Leonard Naipaul, Billy Bob. Good morning to you. All right, let's get into our 8 o'clock news brief. The one, the orderly.